This podcast episode is made possible by wowdigital.com, your trusted partner for nonprofit and charity website and design. Today, we're uncovering some simple and powerful strategies that can transform your nonprofit and how it connects and grows. Are you ready to amplify your impact with minimal hassle? Let's dive in. Welcome to the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. I'm your host, David, and today we're diving into effective digital marketing strategies for nonprofits with Lou Kotsinis. He's the founder and CEO of BCS Interactive, the digital agency focused exclusively on nonprofit and education sectors. Since 2011, Lou and his team have empowered nonprofits across the country to craft authentic stories, build impactful connections, and grow their causes, with a current focus on leveraging digital marketing fundamentals to cultivate a strong and loyal supporter base. Lou, that was a bit of a mouthful. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. How's your day going so far?
It's going great, David. Great to be here. And by the way, when we say across the country, we're talking about the US. As much as I love Canada, we do not have any Canadian clients right now, although our social media strategist is in Toronto.
All righty. Very good. Okay, so let's just jump in. Let's talk about marketing dollars. I believe that organizations, for-profit, not-for-profit, whatever the organization, they should spend about 10% of their operating budget on marketing. That would be paid ads, that would be on hiring social content people, that would be on hiring folks like you or me to help them with web and digital media and that type of stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
We don't really have a set percentage that we recommend clients spend on. For us, we're marketers, so we want people to market. So the more they can spend on advertising, the better. I mean, it just comes down to pure logic. If an organization doesn't spend anything, they will get zero exposure, and maybe by word of mouth, they can grow. If the other organization or another organization spends 20, 30% of their budget on marketing, by definition, they can't not grow. So just by using those very kind of bare metrics, our recommendation is always the more the merrier. We both know in the nonprofit world that's really not feasible, right? So what we advise clients in general is that, when it comes to their marketing dollars, rather than chase, the hot new thing, whether that's, this year AI or TikTok or whatever the industry is telling you to invest in, we think the best spend of those marketing dollars, whether it's 10, 20, or 30%, is really on the core fundamentals, the core principles and processes that are going to pay dividends years down the line, right? And the organizations we've seen that are succeeding in marketing and overall donor growth and retention are the ones that are able to do that. So, we can get in depth in terms of what that is, but it really comes down to kind of three core components. And I realize I'm kind of over answering your question here. I hope you don't mind, but we can build off of that. So, in terms of fundamentals, at the end of the day, David, you're a marketer, so you know where I'm going here. It really comes down to story. So number one is, call it story, call it brand. At the end of the day, donors want to know who they're giving to. They want to connect with a mission in a very deep way. They want to see impact for the dollars that they're putting out there. So here I'm talking about things like thinking about your messaging, your overall storyline, your positioning, and yes, of course, your physical logo, but that really comes after the fact. You really have to have your story in place. If you're able to do that properly and cultivated over time, that's really going to feed the rest of your marketing. So, you're working on looking at your story. And then for a nonprofit, we're also looking at their website, which is, ironic because the website has transformed over the last 10, 15 years. It's not really the end all be all, except for nonprofits, because this is the main conveyor of that story that we're just talking about, right? So irrespective of what happens with search and what happens with technology, people are still going to seek you out. They're going to find you somewhere, and that's going to be your website. So it's really its story, its website, and the third fundamental to think about, of course, is social media, because it's just so omnipresent. And it's such a great way to build a community, and that word community is key there. So yeah, I don't know, in terms of strict percentages, we don't have a cut and dry model, but the money that you do have, invest first in those fundamentals, and then we can always talk about the fun things that are coming down the pipe.
Yeah, I love that approach. And you're talking about these different components. A brand isn't just your logo. A brand isn't just your primary, secondary colors or the fonts that you're using. It's the tone, it's the style, it's what is the essence of the organization. How does that actually come through everything that you do? What is the story that you're telling? And being able to talk about the impact you're having, you want to connect emotionally with people, because that is going to get them to care about your organization. They'll take some kind of action. Maybe it's read another page, maybe it's share an article, maybe it's subscribe to your newsletter, maybe it's become a volunteer, maybe it's make a $5, $10, $50,000 donation. You need to talk about the impact you're having, and that is a huge part of the brand of a nonprofit or a charity.
100%. One way to look at it, if, a nonprofit leader doesn't appreciate that on its face values, if you think of a for-profit organization and a product you're going to buy, whether, I don't know, off the top, I'd say a computer or even a car, you're not really too concerned about, how are they changing the world? What is the story behind this? You want to find the best possible price, the best possible dealer. So that's a different approach than what a nonprofit needs to do, right? By definition, nonprofits are trying to change the world. There is a human story there. So, story should kind of infuse everything that you're doing. And that's frankly one of the reasons why we got into this particular sector, because by definition, nonprofit organizations have this beautiful, human story that we are able to tap into and then kind of build from there. So sometimes, and I've posted about this on LinkedIn, I think sometimes a lot of really worthy nonprofits have kind of, for lack of a better term, like issues of self-esteem, right? They feel, oh, well, we're not a nonprofit and, we're not as powerful as this brand and we're too small, but you have a great marketing asset in that narrative. So I kind of encourage them to lean into that and build off of it for marketing success.
I think there's a little bit of imposter syndrome. How could we possibly do and be as out there as like Red Bull? If you see an organization, for profit, not for profit, you're just starting up or you're thinking of starting a nonprofit or charity, find somebody that you aspire to be like, and then go, how can we make that happen? It's not we can't make it happen. It's how can we make it happen? But here's a little bit of psychology for everybody. You want to frame things in a positive way because that will affect the outcome that you're going to have on whatever it happens to be. So, all right, I guess that's a bit of a side note there.
I think it's totally relevant. And if I can just build on that, as you're aspiring to these other organizations that you see, I think you'll agree with me. It's very important to think also about your ideal prospect, right? Your ideal donor. They're waking up in the morning saying, I have this need, this urgency, something happened in my family and I want to give to this particular cause or whatever it might be, or they believe in the environment or whatever it is they want to do. They're out there waiting for you, right? They're seeking you out. So you think about that donor, get to know them both on a kind of a qualitative and a quantitative way. That's a fancy way of saying, talk to them to understand what motivates them and also look at the data that you're collecting on your websites and on your social media to paint kind of a persona of who this individual is. So to your point, while they're aspiring to be these different organizations, who is it that they're looking to satisfy and what messaging can we put in place to reach that individual? And with patience and consistency over time, that's how we've seen organizations become successful if they're aiming in that direction.
I'd encourage everybody to obviously finish listening to this episode, but check out episode 16 of the podcast because I talk about psychographics and why should nonprofits care about psychographics. And that's going to help you figure out the whole persona thing that Lou is referring to and talking about here. So let's jump back into marketing mode here. So we've got our amazing website working for us. I like to tell our clients, think of your website as a marketer that is working for you 24/7, 365 days a year. It's out there, it's promoting you, it's talking about you. AI is definitely, to your point, here to stay. We've been leveraging AI for about 3.5 to 4 years in my agency, really, really early adopters. We are seeing shifts with AI where they're still using Google. Google is very much the search giant, but they're going into these AI platforms and doing search there. Why? Because they don't see ads in there. They're just getting the straight information and content without even needing to visit the website. So it's siphoning, it's pulling, it's learning, and it's grabbing that information and pushing it into the AI results. So I'm curious, what role do you see that AI can help play from a marketing standpoint for nonprofits and charities?
Sure. So first of all, putting aside what it can do to society, because that is something we need to be concerned about. But from a marketing standpoint, I just see it as a net positive because think about the experience, David, right? Like I like using Claude. That's my platform. Some people like ChatGPT or Perplexity. There's a bunch of others out there, but Claude.ai is the one I go to. And so think about how that experience is versus your traditional Google experience, right? You search for something on Google, you're waiting for your series of websites, you pick the best website, and then you kind of have to keep going down that path, right? what AI has done for us is now it distills the answer that we are looking for. So you immediately find probably the best answer there is to what you're searching. And then the additional beauty is that you can then start to have a conversation with this platform to get additional context. So if you can get found on these platforms, it's really a wonderful thing. So, what we advise clients is what has worked for you to be found in Google. Yes, keep doing that. But now, remember, you just mentioned that these platforms that they learn and they're pulling in data from all different kinds of sources. This is going to compel a nonprofit to really build out its brand across all those channels we spoke about, right? Because it's not just pulling from the web now. They're looking at social media. They're looking at all different kinds of, to use a technical term, what they call data sets. So, we're telling clients to put out a lot of content in the areas that you're strong in, white papers, case studies. If you're doing video presentations, put those on YouTube. So that's how I feel is going to benefit nonprofits. If they can, over time, make sure they're building their brand comprehensively, that's going to increase the chances that you're showing up on these platforms. And while you're doing that, you're also improving your organization because you're touching all of those brand points and making them better along the way. It's a lot of work, and I can see how some organizations would see it as scary, but this is where we're going as a society. And I think, all of us, myself included, really have to get on board with that.
It's one of these technological revolutions that has come into play. And I think COVID really kind of ramped that up and sped it up. I think we were probably before COVID, maybe 8 to 10 years away. And here we are, where like AI is really just a toddler. If we think about it, the human is just right at the beginning, starting to learn all kinds of stuff and whatnot, and understanding how can we leverage that, but also understanding what does it actually know about us right now. So I'd love everybody to go to Perplexity and just do a search on your organization. If you're a leader in your organization, do a search on your own name. See what it actually knows about you, and then dig in a little bit. Spend 5 minutes. That's all you got to do. Start with 5 minutes, block off a bit of time in your calendar, and just go and do a search and see what it actually does know about you. Take a look, run a search. Like, how many organizations in the Northwest US help children have school supplies? Whatever your organization does, do a search on that. Ask it to make a list. Are you on that list? There's a lot of work to be done for organizations. And yes, it can be a little bit scary, but it's important work to be doing so that you can figure out how to grow in that way, because that's what people are leaning to. Like, I've got ChatGPT on my phone. I could actually have a voice conversation with it. It's really cool. It's a little bit weird. AI has been around for a long time. The Google devices, the Alexa devices, the Siris of the world, those are essentially AI models. So don't be too scared of this.
I want to build on what you said, which is an excellent point about how to use Perplexity. So for those of your listeners that don't know, Perplexity is basically an AI-enabled search engine. You'll see similarities to Google in the sense that when you type in a search query, it's going to give credit to the different websites that it pulled from. So you'll have different sites to look at. A great exercise that we advise clients, which you just mentioned here, is, if you go to Google and type in your organization's name, I don't know, the Canadian Cancer Fund, I don't know, I'm just making one up off the top of my head, you will see probably your website come up, which is great, right? But your website. If you type that same search into Perplexity, you're going to see summary of all of what that platform has learned about you in one page. So it's a great way to see how the world views you from the point of AI. And it's a great way to then assess, well, wait a second, this is not where we're focused anymore. This is not how we want to say certain things. And this is why I love using AI tools, because they can streamline your marketing. It's a great way to get a snapshot of what your brand is all about.
Absolutely. So when we think about digital marketing and nonprofits, are there any fundamental pieces that you think these nonprofits should be thinking about or moving forward with?
Sure. So yeah, we kind of opened with that. Again, I can't emphasize enough how, story and brand and positioning is really the cornerstone of everything that you're doing. So it's a matter of continually doing that. It's not a one and done thing, right? Because the audience changes, the marketplace changes, technology changes. Are you meeting your prospective donors and constituents where they are in this day and age? So looking at story is number one. Again, we spoke about website and we spoke about social media being those channels. Another one I would add to that, which is kind of an add-on to all of this, is email marketing, right? Because that's your opportunity to have a really solid, almost one-on-one conversation with your audience. Now, as you've got these fundamentals in place, at that point, as God willing, more budget comes your way and more staff is able to dedicate time to different marketing initiatives, and hopefully the board is behind you as well too, then you can start to do some really interesting things like, paid social media ads, search engine marketing, and of course, starting to dabble in AI as well too. So those are really, just to reiterate, those core fundamentals are the ones we spoke about in the beginning.
Okay, so we've got these fundamental pieces. I love that you talked about email on a recent episode. We did talk about email and segmentation and tagging people and the right way to build automations and pieces like that. So I don't want to kind of like dive into there, but I'm super glad that you mentioned that because it is really a big part of it because you get directly into somebody's face. When you connect into their email, they actually have to go delete, or I mean, I go into a little bit of a panic mode whenever I see my sister's phone because there's like 89,000 unread emails on the little mail icon there, but it just kind of sits there, but you're still there, right? You're trying to be present with them. So fundamentals, awesome, super clear, successful nonprofits versus average ones or below average ones, right? What do you see as the thing that separates really successful ones from average?
Yeah, sure. Well, from a marketing standpoint, I can't speak to their fundraising or their overall strategy. There's a few common elements that we see in all of our clients that really kind of take off, versus those that kind of just hold the course. So the first thing is that they take marketing seriously, right? From the top down, it's not just an afterthought. It's not something they're going to do when they have the time or when they come across the money. Really, they've made marketing and that brand that I spoke about critical to their success. So that really starts at the executive and the board level, right? They believe in it. Secondly, they do what we just said, which is they focus on the fundamentals, right? It's not, I think you and I are both old enough to remember the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, right? It's not one of these where, okay, well, this year we're just going to throw a bunch of money at this and we want to go viral. And it doesn't work that way, right? They understand it's a long-term game. It's a consistency game and patience. And so, and then lastly, and this ties into the first point, is that they are willing to dedicate the time and the financial resources to make it work. And again, we're not talking about being spendthrifts here. We're not talking about putting an inordinate amount of money into it, but they realize that to build out their infrastructure and to gain exposure, they do have to put some money into this. It's an overall mindset, really, that is comprised of these three things.
Obviously, a big part of nonprofits is human capital. You need people, whether it's volunteers, interns, full-time staff, part-time staff, to actually make everything run. And then you've got other folks like you and I. We can come in as consultants, give you direction, do the deliverables for you to save you the time, right? So having said that, your opinion, how can nonprofits address the staffing needs or the capacity concerns with regards to actually creating the marketing plan and strategy and then actually delivering on it?
And that's a big challenge in the industry, right? David, I just, budget is one thing, but the thing that we hear, more and more often is, okay, well, you've given us this great strategy. We just don't have the staff to implement it, right? It's a capacity thing. So, I mean, I would approach that this way. So first of all, you have to define what it is that you're trying to achieve, right? Like set your goals up, make them as concrete as possible, and then start to assess, well, where do we need the help? What channels are we in that we know we can be successful in? Do we have an amazing Facebook presence? And this is where we're getting a lot of our, funding coming through. Do we have thousands of people coming to our website because we have a blog that really is answering all of their questions? Or, decide or understand where your audience is and then narrow it down to that. So that way you're not trying to be everything to everyone. And then it goes back to that mindset again, right? I think an executive director in particular needs to work with their board to understand that this needs to be a commitment. And then really you start from available funding. So if you're a smaller organization and don't have the capacity in-house, you can start to look out to agencies like, yours or mine, for example. If that becomes cost prohibitive, then you kind of work your way down. Well, maybe we can speak to a freelancer using a tool like Upwork, where you can find a qualified freelancer in that particular area that you need to focus on. And if it's cost prohibitive for that, then you start looking towards the volunteer realm. Now, with that, of course, you have to be cautious. You have to find people that are qualified and that are committed to marketing the mission. But I would take that top-down approach. And again, board involvement is very important here. If they're not going to fund what you're looking to do, then they have to pitch in to help find that volunteer or find that, that freelancer that's going to assist. One last thing I want to mention here, and I think you probably have some experience here, is you can also start to look to AI to assist on some of these tasks that we're talking about here. And I'm not talking about replacing humans. I'm not talking about having AI write your content and you put that content on your website, but I am talking about having AI do things that normally a production person would do or you would waste time doing, such as looking at proper subject headings for emails, improving your social media posts, helping you as you're writing a blog topic to research a particular topic that you don't understand. So I've actually wrote a post on this a while back that I think helped quite a few people. But, this is what we want to start leaning into AI for as an assistant and not necessarily something that's going to replace humanity.
We use AI, we recommend it to our clients as well. And we say, even go back to the very, very basics, and you can leverage it to help you with brainstorming. We need to run a charity campaign of some kind, blah, blah, blah. This is kind of what we do. Give me 25 different ideas of 3-hour campaign, right? You'll get things like car wash or a library fundraiser or whatever. You can use it in that way, and you're not going to get perfection out of AI, right? What you will get is maybe 60, 70% the way there. And then that's where the human comes in to go, okay, this is right, this isn't right, refine it, put another query in, or prompt in the AI world, it's called a prompt, and get what it is that you want out of it to help save you some time. Because you can sit down for an hour with 5, 6, 7 of your colleagues in your department and brainstorm, and AI can probably do that with just one person going back and forth with it to come up with a few really great ideas. And it might not be totally fleshed out, but it's a starting point.
Yeah, well, 100%. And one of the areas I just mentioned that I love using AI for is, I write a lot, I regularly blog, and sometimes you want to explain a technical topic or you yourself want to get some knowledge on a particular area. And in the past, I'd spend hours chasing down different websites, then comparing the two answers to see, does that make sense? This is really what AI is for, right? You can type in that particular topic and it's like speaking to a college professor, but like the smartest college professor you've ever met in your life who happens also to be polite and responds really quick, right? So that's the way I use AI. But, again, we're really just at the cusp of what these things can do. I mean, you likened it to being an infant. It's kind of an infant that's growing 100 years a minute. Like, it's growing very rapidly. So it's, I encourage people not to be intimidated by it and to learn as much as they can and go on these platforms and experiment. And you'll see it's going to become apparent over time the way you can use this for your organization.
Awesome. Lou, thank you so much for your insights today. They've been incredibly valuable. I hope our listeners can take something away from this conversation and do something with it to help enhance their digital efforts. And I like to put our guests in a hot seat right at the end. So let's see if you're ready for it. If you were to give whoever's listening to this a challenge to do in the next 1 or 2 days after listening to this episode, or even immediately after this episode, what would that challenge be?
Sure. It would be to reach out to 1, 2, 3 of your best donors or best prospects or people that you think represent your audience and ask them, what do you think of us? Are we getting our messaging across properly? What can we do to satisfy you? Where should we be? So it's one thing to do with a lot of subtopics to it, but just, I can't emphasize this enough. Get to know your key audience and understand what they want to see. And are you meeting that need online? That's going to feed everything you do.
Absolutely love it. Lou, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what do they need to do?
Sure, they can find me on LinkedIn, Lou Kotsinis. That'll be hopefully in the link. And also they can sign up for our monthly blog as well, too, by going to our website, bcsinteractive.com, and just scroll down to the bottom. And there's a sign up there. We post once a month on topics just like this, nonprofit digital marketing.
Amazing. Amazing. Thanks again so much for joining in, Lou. It's been enlightening having you here on the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. Everybody listening, if you're looking for any of the links or the resources or Lou's LinkedIn profile, just head over to our podcast page at nonprofitdigitalsuccess.com. Check out this episode for all the details. We've got the show notes there. And until next time, keep on being successful.